Baltimore Station is a residential therapeutic community where men who are suffering from homelessness due to addiction and other mental health disorders can come and turn their lives around. We focused on veterans because in the beginning, when Baltimore Station was founded in South Baltimore, and volunteers that were working in the community with the homeless men here, they discovered, after they got to know the men better, that over 80% of the men that they were working with were actually Vietnam veterans who had been through combat situations. And their homelessness was actually a direct result of them coming back to civilian life and not being able to comfortably make that transition. And they began to self-medicate. The men didn't have any option but to use alcohol and drugs to cope with the anxieties that they were dealing with. Over time, it became a licensed treatment program because the majority of the men that we saw had addiction issues that directly led to their homelessness.
We serve a diverse population, but as a veteran, I can speak towards the veterans' issues. They have dropped bombs and grenades and shot thousands of rounds of ammunition into villages and houses in different combat zones where they know that they have destroyed families and they have left someone's son standing in a puddle of blood.
Regardless of your view about the war being right or wrong, any war being right or wrong, politically, we still send our men and women into those situations. And the importance of having resources for them when they come back so that they can have a fruitful, whole, successful, happy life. Places like the Baltimore Station provide that, and the larger system can't.
The station provides rigorous programs, and individuals who come to us, whatever part of the population that they come from, fail to take personal responsibility for everything in their life. And the need for the station is to restructure and show them a different way.
The Baltimore Station from day one recognized that if the men were going to be given the opportunity to actually enter into recovery, that it could not be time dictated. The Baltimore Station is effective for primarily two reasons. One, because there's a very strong peer support in the program. And two, because there's no artificial time constraint that's placed on the men. They're not told at the end of 30 days, you're going to go back out. You're going to go back out into the world when you're ready to go back out into the world, when you believe that you have achieved a state of recovery. From the very beginning, the clinical direction was that the program would offer the men an opportunity to stay for up to 24 months.
The thing that the Baltimore Station offers there is the time to not be pushed, not be rushed, not have to go back to the same thing.
It means the world to me. It means the world to me.
I'm really glad that I did come and that I'm getting the treatment that I need here.
Our men have maybe done things that they're ashamed of, that they're embarrassed about, that they need to make restitution for, but that they're going through a process of change, and that they shouldn't be embarrassed about, that they shouldn't be ashamed of.
Here, there was never that kind of pressure because you've got plenty of time. So there's time to think about what I'm doing, what I need to do, and realize there's just no hurry to do anything that's not going to help me in the long run. So that's what it's been about for me.
The Baltimore Station has changed by clearly understanding that addiction is a human process, and we approach it from a human standpoint. This is how the Baltimore Station has changed from a homeless shelter to a person-centered, individualized treatment facility.
What we have learned scientifically over the last, particularly the last probably 5 to 6 years, is that that addiction is a brain disorder, and that if we are going to look at the wiring within the brain that leads a person to use drugs and alcohol to overcome some problem or obstacle in their life, how are we going to sort of overcome that wiring that has developed?
I think that one major way the program has grown is to take the focus off of drugs and alcohol and become more person-centered.
They don't talk about drugs and alcohol. They talk about resetting the brain. They talk about behavior.
The Baltimore Station is more in-depth. They really go into what your disease is and why you are what you are.
Some things that happen in an individual's life, regardless of veteran or non-veteran or drug court, they cause him not to want to feel a certain way. And the tools that he had available to him many times were drugs and alcohol. And the tool of drugs and alcohol, even though it was the wrong tool, it was accessed by the individual in order to help to change the way that he feels about his life and the traumas that happened in his life.
When you're having a bad moment at the Baltimore Station, you get immediate feedback. And that makes a significant difference in encouraging the men and helping them manage their ability to stay clean and sober when something bad happens. Things that this organization has said from the very beginning is that we're not going to isolate our men or ourselves.
But I think the major therapy that we have here is to teach the individual how to acclimate himself into the wider community. And how we do that is through volunteerism. When volunteers come into the program and they help us and they serve dinner and they do different activities, what they do is they take and show the individuals how to live in the community.
Our volunteers are critical. Our ability to be out in the community and be respected in this community, particularly here in Federal Hill, South Baltimore, and Sharp Leadenhall, has led to, I think, our men being able to feel better about themselves and therefore stay in the program that much longer.
Volunteers are an intricate part of the program. By coming into the program, they're able to show the individuals how to live in the community, how to be a productive member of the community.
We're also part of the larger community, and the volunteers serve to reinforce that and expand that circle so that the individual is part of his small group when he comes in here to the station, becomes part of the larger group of the whole station community, and then part of the whole community.
So from day one, we've invited the community into the Baltimore Station, and we've told our men they have a responsibility to be outside in the larger community, which has led to an incredible base of support.
The volunteers come in and they cook a meal and they share a story and they listen to the guys. They show themselves as friends.
With all the volunteers that come in to serve meals, we're educating a community that is not just the South Baltimore community. It's the larger community, because I think a lot of the volunteers come from the county.
The individuals that you meet, a lot of them are just inspirational.
That actually reinforces for the men that they are human beings of value. Every year we know more and more about the brain, and we know how that process can be positively impacted for change. And it's going to be important for the Baltimore Station to stay on top of that. The second thing that the Baltimore Station should be striving for is that there is a percentage of our men that are going to struggle even after they graduate. We can clinically look at them and say, you know, this guy's going to need support for another 5 years, 10 years, that we should be creating a continuum of care for those men. And the Baltimore Station needs to grow to be able to do that.
I think the Baltimore Station always has a potential to grow. There certainly is a need out there. My hopes for the Baltimore Station is continue doing the job they're doing. I think it's particularly good that the Baltimore Station hires from within and that the residents become counselors. One of the things I'm most proud of about the Baltimore Station is that the men who I met when I first became involved were getting their GEDs. And now some of them have their masters and are going for their PhDs.
When I came to the Baltimore Station, I didn't have a high school diploma. I earned my high school diploma here and went on to community college and received my associate's degree. And on December the 12th, 2012, I received my master's degree in rehabilitation.
Our graduates are all over Baltimore City, and they're doing wonderful things. We have a gentleman who has started his own pest control company and is doing very well. We have guys that are truck drivers, guys working in warehouses. We have a teacher in the Baltimore City school system. So they're in all aspects of Baltimore society.
I think people tend to paint a picture of a homeless addict, and it can be so wrong.
We could not run the Baltimore Station without the fundraising that our board does, without the annual appeal to our volunteers, where we raise enough money to enable these men to stay in the program as long as it takes.
The reason I'm still involved with the Baltimore Station, the only way I can explain it is it's in my heart. There are so many good things about it, and I've had such wonderful experiences here, but it is in my heart. It's got a hold of me, and I'll never let it go.